Today I'm gonna answer your questions because the motto is ask a mechanical engineer anything. I'll first go through engineering school related questions, then engineering career questions, YouTube questions, and finally some personal questions. And by the way, we're also celebrating 1,000 subscribers on this channel. Woo! Thank you so much everyone for subscribing. And if you're new here, hey, my name is Anna and I'm a German mechanical engineer based in Sweden. I work as a material flow automation engineer for a battery factory for electric vehicles. Got it? Great. Let's get into the juicy questions. How do you choose the right university for engineering? I think that there really is no one right university for engineering. It really depends on your personal priorities. So your first step should be to decide what factors are really important to you. For example, the location, the size of the school, or its reputation. For me, it was really most important that the school was going to be in Berlin because I really wanted to move to Berlin. And I also knew that I would prefer to study at a larger university compared to a smaller one. So I decided to study at the Technical University of Berlin, which has over 30,000 students. There are also different university rankings out there that you can find online if you care about things like the quality of the technical facilities or how many papers the professors of the school publish per year. And you might also want to look into how large the classes are and how independent versus guided the learning is. Some people might do better if they get to make their own schedule and study plan, and others might do better if everything is decided and organized for them. And finally, if you can, just go visit the schools that you're considering and sit in some of their classes and see if
the vibe is right.
How many years will it take to graduate with an engineering degree? This can vary between different countries and universities. The program I did was a bachelor's and then a master's degree in mechanical engineering. The bachelor program was supposed to take 3 years and the master's program was supposed to take 2 years. So 5 years in total. I took a little bit longer because I was also working on the side and doing another master on the side. And it's also quite common in Germany to decide yourself at which pace you want to study. I think in the US you commonly have 4 years of bachelor studies or undergraduate studies, I think they're called there, and then 2 years of graduate studies. Please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. You can also decide to stop after your 3 to 4 years of bachelor studies if you'd rather work sooner and study less. And depending on the country, you're already allowed to call yourself an engineer at this point. So basically, it depends. Hope this helped. Are there online courses for pursuing an engineering degree such as mechanical engineering or aeronautical engineering? I haven't heard of online courses that get you an engineering degree, but some universities offer something like distant learning or remote study where you don't go to classes but you learn the material in your own time and then take the university exams to get your degree. You can often do this part-time and next to a job. Otherwise, if you don't really care about the degree and you just want to learn some basics of engineering, there are a lot of engineering classes on YouTube and on platforms like Skillshare, Coursera, and Udemy. Do engineering programs have elective classes? At my university there were a lot of electives, meaning that I could choose my preferred classes from a list of accepted classes. Because of that, I was able to choose several classes in the field of automation and production engineering, which interested me the most. This might be different for your engineering program, but if you go on the university website, you can usually look up the curriculum of the program you're considering to study and figure out which mandatory and elective classes it contains. So if it's important to you to have a lot of freedom of choice, you can pick a university and engineering program that has a lot of electives. Could you walk us through what courses you studied in university so that we can get to know the mechanical engineering degree from a German perspective? Sure. Let's start with my bachelor. The first year was focused on the basics of mechanics and math. So calculus 1 and 2, linear algebra, static mechanics, dynamic mechanics, basics of electrical engineering, manufacturing engineering, material science, and a class in computer-aided design, or short CAD. During my second year, I did some more advanced design projects. I took fluid mechanics and a class called measurement technology and sensors, data analysis, basics of computer science, and differential equations. And then in the third year, I took control theory, basics of automation technology, a project on the finite element method, or short FEM, and then some free electives where I could choose whatever classes I wanted. So I did French and human factors engineering. And then I also had to do a 12-week internship in a company and a bachelor thesis, which is like your final research project on which you work by yourself, and then you write a long scientific report. Now to my master. I actually did not have any mandatory classes whatsoever in my master, so I was completely free to choose my classes in whatever order I wanted from a list of suitable classes. I took production technology, machine tools, basics of quality management, assembly technology, integrative product development, battery production technology, and then I did a project within battery production technology. I also had some free electives in my master where I again could choose whatever class I wanted. So I did a bunch of business and entrepreneurship classes because I realized that I have a very strong interest for those. And I also took a Swedish language class. And then we also had a 6-week internship and a master thesis. And that's it. Describe an ideal roadmap for mechanical engineering students in their first year. You're asking me some tough questions, yo. Okay, I think there's really only 3 goals that you should aim for during your first year of engineering school. The first goal is to understand what engineering actually is. So whenever you learn a new word or concept, I want you to write that down. And whenever you don't understand something, I want you to Google it or watch a video about it. Just make sure to get as good of an understanding as possible what engineering actually is. The second goal is to figure out how you can best study and basically build a portfolio of study methods and hopefully pass some classes in the process. But learning how to learn is by far the most valuable thing that you can learn. And the third goal is to get organized. You need to find a simple but consistent system to organize your shit. So a calendar, one central to-do list, and some physical and digital folders. This is gonna be your productivity system. I go more into detail on these points in my video on 5 skills to learn before engineering school, which really also applies to your whole first year. So check that out if you want to know more. What projects have you done during your studies that have made you a better engineer and why? We've done a lot of cool projects throughout the studies, especially during the master's program. And in general, projects are the part of my program that I learned by far the most from about engineering. So let me share 2 of my favorite projects. The first project was designing a transmission for a motorbike. I actually still have the humongous drawing we made. So we were given a turning speed for the motor and a target of how fast the motorbike should be able to drive, I think 750 meters. And then we had to design the transmission, calculate the optimal number of teeth on the gear wheels, and verify that the drive shafts were strong enough to withstand the forces and momentum. Then we created a 3D model to design the transmission in more detail with all its components. I don't have the 3D model anymore, but it looked something like this. And then we did something called a drawing derivation, where you basically cut through the middle of your 3D model and extract a 2D drawing, which then looks like this. But let me show you a bit more simple example of this real quick. So let's take this vase and pretend that it's a 3D model. If I wanted to make a 2D drawing from this 3D model, I would choose a plane to cut through the model. And for a sort of cylindrical body like this, it makes most sense to cut through the center of rotation. So for example, like this. And then the 2D drawing would look something like this. So you have the center of rotation and then you have like a cut through the middle of your vase. And this is pretty much the same that we do with the transmission. We just cut through the middle and then draw whatever you would see on that 2D plane. And it helps you see a lot of details that you otherwise wouldn't. Okay. Anyway, the second project I want to talk about was to make an autonomous vehicle. So we got the task to build a small autonomous vehicle that could master this obstacle course, and we received a building kit to do that. We decided to build a little tram or cable car or whatever you want to call it. So we first looked at the available components in the building kit, and then we imported a digital version of that into a CAD program so that we could design the powertrain. We also designed the car body of the tram in CAD, which we then 3D printed and then painted to match the colors of the Berlin tram. And once we had our 3D models, we physically built the powertrain from the building kit and selected which sensors we wanted to use to control the tram. And then we started programming and testing the control system. And then finally, once we were sort of happy with the drive performance of the car, we attached the car body to the powertrain. And when it came to presenting our project, we almost made it through the whole obstacle course without interfering. Oh well. It was a super cool project with a lot of long nights spent in the university, and I learned a lot about how to combine several engineering disciplines to achieve a goal. Do you have any recommendations for learning Python or other programming languages for mechanical engineers? Almost all of the lessons on YouTube are aimed at computer science students. Do you also use it frequently in your work? I don't use any coding in my current job. However, I actually also want to learn how to code myself. I did a little bit of coding in high school and university, just a little bit of Java and C++ and G code, but nothing really serious. Now I actually signed up for a coding course by She Codes, which teaches you the basics of front-end web development. And I heard that this is a great way to learn your first programming language because it's so visual to program a website. I'm gonna start it on August 1st, so I'll keep you updated on how that goes. As for Python, I've never studied it, but I might want to do that in the future. So I asked a friend who I know took some Python classes for a recommendation, and she recommended to me the Udemy class, the Python Mega Course. Build 10 real-world applications, which I'm gonna link down below. Which mechanical branch should I choose for my master's if I want to go into research? You can go into research through pretty much any mechanical engineering branch, but the more theoretical branches like mechanics, thermodynamics, and control theory lend themselves a little bit more to research compared to more industry-related disciplines like production technology and robotics. But there's actually plenty of professors doing industry-related research, and often even joint research together with companies from the industry. So I guess it really just depends on what kind of topics you enjoy and could see yourself sticking with for many years. And maybe even more importantly, look at which professors and faculties you vibe with the most and which topics they research. Since from what I've heard, your success as a researcher will be super dependent on how well you work with your supervisor and your team. I'm a final year mechanical engineering student and would like to know how to get a mechanical engineering job with zero work experience. What are the things companies look for on your resume or CV? First of all, instead of work experience, you can show your project experience. What university projects did you do and what did you learn? Have you done any personal projects on the side? If not, can you start one right now? Did you do any internships? What was your bachelor or master thesis about? So you can add these kind of projects to your CV with a few bullet points on what the task was, how you solved it, and the skills you learned. Second of all, I think the biggest mistake you can make is to mess up your first impression with stupid things on your CV. It's really the basics. There should be absolutely no typos or grammatical issues on your CV because it will make you look sloppy. Everything should have a consistent font and color scheme, consistent line spacing and letter spacing and margins. Keep it simple and use the space well. So don't repeat information, don't have more than 1 or 2 pages, don't praise yourself, just let the facts speak for themselves. Don't lie and don't make your internships look like full-time jobs because it will just make you look like you change jobs way too frequently. And finally, always customize your CV or resume to fit the job you're applying for. Again, I don't mean that you should lie, but you can make sure to include the most relevant skills for the job and leave out irrelevant ones. And you can add a few more bullet points to projects that are especially relevant to the job so that it's easy for the recruiter to see that you're a great fit. For this next one, I'm gonna answer 2 comments in one because they sort of have a similar theme, which is how do I stand out as an engineer? Do soft skills matter in mechanical engineering? Does knowing CAD programs pay off? I've been overwhelmed by the fact that experience is what companies want, yet there's no way to gain it. Any recommendations? How do you grow yourself? Your mindset for being a good mechanical engineer? What do you do extra for more in-depth knowledge of mechanical engineering so that you stand out against the rest? Yes, both soft skills matter, like communication skills, good team spirit, and being organized. And also hard skills like CAD or programming matter if they're required by the specific job. But my biggest piece of advice for standing out is probably to double down on your strengths. So instead of going for jobs where you meet all of the skills like a little bit, go for ones where at least some of the things required you are really strong in, and then figure out how you can prove that you're really good at them. Maybe you did a university project, maybe you had a student job where you needed that skill, and if you don't have any way to prove it yet, you need to do something that can. You can take an online class and mention the certificate on your CV, or you can start a side project with that skill. And then finally, if you can't get a full-time job, try to find lower barrier ways to get a foot in the door, like an internship, a trainee program, or a workshop or webinar hosted by the company where you can make some connections. Target smaller companies or startups that care less about your experience and more about your motivation. And then you can use those kind of jobs as stepping stones for your dream job, which gives me a perfect segue into the next question. How did you get your first internship and your first job? So I did 3 internships during my studies. Obviously, I don't have all the answers. There's always a bit or a lot of luck involved, but here's at least what I did. So I only ever really applied to positions that I'm super excited about, because otherwise there's no way that I can write an engaging cover letter and do well during the interviews. That means I usually also only apply to one position at once, because it's almost impossible for me to be equally excited about several opportunities. And I put a lot of hours into an application, at least 10 hours per application, maybe more. And to prepare my application, I go on the company's website and figure out exactly what they do. I write down important keywords about their mission and the industry and products, and then I go through the job posting word for word and write down for each requirement how I can show that I fulfill that in my CV and cover letter. I then edit my CV to emphasize the things that the company is looking for. Then I plan out the structure of my cover letter. I try to make it fun to read by telling a story of how I got to the point where I'm basically destined to work in that exact position for that exact company. Let me know if you would like me to make a more detailed video on how I write my cover letters and how I adjust my CV to match a job posting. But yeah, that's pretty much how I applied to every one of the 3 internships I did. For the first internship, I only applied to 1 position in total. For the second one, I applied to, I think, 3, so this was the 3rd one I applied to that I got into. And for the 3rd one, I also only applied to 1 position. And then the last internship turned into first a master thesis and student job, and then a full-time position as an engineer. And what potentially helped me to convert from an intern to a full-time employee is that I asked for more responsibility during the internship already. I was very lucky that my manager then gave me a project to work on by myself, so I just did my best to progress it as far as possible in the time I still had left in my internship. So yeah, there was definitely some luck in being trusted with this project and being in a company that was looking to convert their interns into full-time employees, but then I also tried to make the most of that. If you think back to the beginning of your career, what would you do again and what would you do differently? I would again ask for more responsibility whenever I feel underutilized, maybe even earlier than I did so far. And what I would do differently, I would ask more questions, like way more questions. I would ask more questions during my studies, during my bachelor and master thesis, during my internships, and during my start into my full-time job. I would care way less about looking stupid and just honestly say whenever I don't understand something, and then ask questions until I do understand. After gaining knowledge as an engineer, have you thought about creating your own business? If so, what are some ideas a mechanical engineer can think about? Yes, I definitely want to start my own business at some point in the next few years after gaining some more industry experience. I think the main purpose of a business is to solve a problem. So I'm just keeping my eyes open for unsolved problems I see in the industries that I come in contact with as part of my job. And trust me, there are way more unsolved problems and business opportunities than I could ever pursue, but I'm just trying to collect them all and then over time hopefully identify one that I'm in a unique position to solve. How often do you pause the camera to start over when filming a video? And is there more than one blooper in each video you make? Oh yeah. To give you a quick rundown of how I make these videos, once I decide on a video idea, I write a script for the video almost word for word because I find it hard to speak freely in front of the camera without taking way too long to get to the point. Yes, also this video is scripted word for word. Then I set up my camera and microphone and light, and I take my computer with my script and I just learn a short section of the script and then say to the camera, if something doesn't come out quite right, I just repeat it until it's fine. I just repeat it until it's fine. I just repeat it until it's fine. I don't ever pause the recording in between. I just make one long recording with all the good and the bad takes included. Then I take the entire footage and I run it through a software called Recut, which automatically cuts out all of the pauses where I don't say anything or take a breath or do something weird. And then I put that cut up version into Final Cut Pro and cut out all the double takes and cut out all the double takes and cut out even more pauses that the software didn't catch. And then I add ridiculous edits until I think it's entertaining and smooth enough. Then I create a thumbnail using Canva, export it and upload it to YouTube. I link all the resources that I use down below. Any tips for up and coming YouTubers? Alright, shout out to my friend Zubair for asking this question. Let me answer this in two ways. If you've been thinking of starting a YouTube channel for a long time, but you still haven't, I challenge you to take out your phone and film a video right now. Just talk about why you want to start a YouTube channel and what kind of topics you plan to talk about. You don't even have to upload this to YouTube, but bonus points if you do. If you do upload it, send me a link and I'll give you feedback. But either way, you've just taken the hardest step of starting a YouTube channel, making the first video. Everything after this is pretty much a walk in the park. Don't overthink it. Don't wait until you're good at making videos before making videos, because that makes no sense. The only way to get good is to make a lot of videos. Now, if you're already making videos but you're not as consistent as you'd like to be, or you're not quite getting the traction you want yet, I recommend to first of all, never stop experimenting and do more of the things that do a little bit better than others. For example, I noticed that a lot more people than usual were watching my video on 5 things I wish I knew before studying mechanical engineering. So I made a follow-up video called 5 things I wish I knew before becoming a mechanical engineer, and the video did even better. And then I try out new topics constantly and I shamelessly steal video ideas from other more successful YouTubers. But then I try to put my own twist to it. If you want to take things a step further, I recommend taking the Part-Time YouTuber Academy by Ali Abdaal. I took that course about half a year ago when I had exactly 6 subscribers, and it helped me so much to keep going, find an accountability group, and improve my video making skills. I also made a review video of the course, which I'm gonna link down below. Could you please interview other mechanical engineers who work as designers or work in the automotive industry, oil, gas, HVAC, mechanics, and robotics? I could. I just need engineers willing to be interviewed. So if you're an engineer and you'd like to be interviewed on my channel, leave me a comment or email me and I will make it happen. What is your worst fear? Fear of heights and fear of death. Do you plan on ever making a project of your own, or is it too much for you? It's definitely not too much for me. I'm a very ambitious person and there are lots of projects that I would love to do in the future. My next project will be to learn how to code, as I mentioned, and to then use that to build a website. I might also want to create an ebook or a class for teaching business skills to other engineers in the future. In 1 or 2 years, I also want to buy an apartment and renovate it and learn more about building things around the house. And then in the further away future, I'd like to start an engineering business. And I already spend a large part of my free time reading about business knowledge, but I try to force myself to focus on a few things at a time and not everything at once. I'm now actually following something called the fake semester technique, where you set yourself a limited time frame of a few weeks or months. You make up a curriculum for something you want to learn or a project you want to do. You pick a few books to read and then you go and complete that fake semester. And then when it's done, you move on to the next fake semester where you again get to pick. I really love this for keeping myself focused and not overwhelming myself with too many projects at once. My friend Liz, who's also a mechanical engineer, has made a great video explaining this technique and I pretty much just stole it from her. So I'll link her video down below if that sounds interesting. Why on earth are you still single? I'm not. I'm in a very happy relationship, and by the way, my partner has agreed to appear in a video if I ever hit 100,000 subscribers. So let's make that happen, yeah. When you hit 1 million subscribers, will you quit your job? If. I would say if. That would of course be amazing to be that successful on YouTube, but I try to take it one step at a time. So let me share with you my next steps instead. So I would love to start making a little bit of money with YouTube so that I could afford to hire an editor and make more videos more consistently, and also make better videos, because it's taking me a lot of time to make these videos next to my job, so I'm not quite able to be consistent all the time. And then my more long-term dream is to start an engineering business in maybe 2 or 3 years from now, and I would love to just share my journey with that on YouTube once I do that. So I don't really plan on quitting my job for YouTube, but I do plan on one day starting something myself and then inevitably leaving my job. And of course I'll be needing lots of engineers to work in my business, so if you're an engineer or engineering student, hit me up in a few years. If you want to see me answer more questions, you can check out my last and first Q&A video. And with that, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye. Gee, the sun coming back and going, it's making the lighting shit. Oh well.